Welcome to the Miniatures Paintbrush. Today we're going to talk about how I like to paint fur. Alrighty, so what we have here is a painting tip of how I paint brown fur. We'll start off with a wash. And what I did at first, just take some Agrax Earth Shade and layer it on. Before that, all I did was take Stynylrez and I airbrushed the Stynylrez to the top of the fur, and that was gray. And then all I'm doing is just darkening in the top areas here. The miniature I'm using is from Reapers, and it's a metal miniature. And it had a really funky base of a rock outcropping that it was coming up, so I clipped it off very carefully, and then I mounted it onto a couple of cork bases, 3 layers, and have it coming off on some kind of cliffside, and that's the scene that I wanted to create. And I used Liquitex modeling paste in order to really start sculpting some of the rocks and making it transition from one layer to another, because if all you did was put cork bases on top of each other, it'd be obvious that there was cork. And I want to kind of diffuse that and actually make it look like real stone. Okay, so you see how lightly I'm going in with the Agrax Earth Shade, because I'm slowly just bringing it down into the recesses. A lot of the process of painting fur is getting it to the point where you're happy with it. Because if you're not happy with it, then, there's no way you're going to like it on the shelf or for your project. So just, if you're happy with it, then that's all that matters. But in order to control where I want the paint to be, instead of just globbing it on, with a very wet brush, I slowly put it in. And I notice that with the Agrax Earth Shade, I never get it into the ferrule of the brush. I never like having anything in the ferrule of my brush. I like to try to take care of my brushes, because if you take care of something, it'll last. And I was always told that if you don't take care of things, then you don't deserve to have them. Period. So take care of your things and they will last you. But if you don't take care of your things, that means you're going to break anyway. So a lot of the fur, since fur in nature is not even or, completely straight in pattern, it's kind of just blotchy. I'm switching over to sepia here to make a transition to the belly. And so what it takes is just like if you go or overbrush here and there, it's really not going to make a difference. If you do something that you don't like, you can always go with a base color, whatever you're using. In this case, I used a gray. I also sprayed a white from underneath, so the belly would be white, transition to that gray color, and I could paint over the gray color with the brown. So I know as a guide, so I know where I kind of want the paint and not want the paint. Now, one of the best things you can do when painting fur is do a search in your search engine for wolves. Okay, so there's nothing better than to having a reference when you're painting something, especially when the item itself exists and you're trying to paint that item in miniature form. Then the best thing you can do is to look for the real item. So in this case, you're looking for wolves because you're trying to paint a wolf that looks realistic. Well, you can't get more realistic than real. So use those real pictures as a guide to help you know where you're putting paint. And this is my first time actually painting fur. I think it came out okay. And the reason why I'm painting this, there's several reasons. The first reason is that this is actually an unpaid commission from my niece, who requested a wolf for her birthday, that I paint her a miniature wolf for her birthday. Luckily, I had a miniature wolf in my stash of miniatures to be able to paint. So I'm really glad and excited to get this project done for her. Equally, I am doing a set of Space Wolves Battle Force that I had bought years ago. I guess it was years ago. It was a while ago. I know that for sure. And way pre Primaris Marines, which is cool. I like variety. And in that force, they have wolves. They also have patches of wolf fur as heraldry and markings and pelts of wolves. These are the space wolves, so they're futuristic 40,000 years. The year 40,000. For those of you who are not privy to the lore of 40K, it's a war game. It's set in the future where all there is war, and you're a general, and you have to use tactics in order to win the game and seize the opponent. It's not unlike real warfare in the olden days when they had miniature figures on a battlefield and they represented what they were going to do in battle and they had to strategize. So it's actually a derivative of that. So there's ties in history when it comes to wargaming. But this one is set in a in a fantasy setting of the future, where they have these space wolves, which are like futuristic Vikings, which are pretty cool. At least I think they're very cool. And so I wanted to learn how to paint fur, and I figured what better time to practice than to actually paint a small wolf before I transfer it on to larger wolves. I think those are called wargs. Wargs. I like the word warg. Warg. I don't know. Anyway. So you see back there I have quite a few of the shades, and I do like Citadel Shades. Basically Islamian medium with a color or an ink to make it that way. You can make your own shades by using Lamium medium or using a matte medium, and using that with a paint to water it down. I don't know I think it's 10-to-1 ratio. I should do a video on how I make washes and glazes. I guess that'll come up sooner or later. Also, there's a lot of videos that I like to do with the products that are out there from different companies, sort of like Vallejo and Games Workshop and War Colors, which I want to get a set. I'm working that Reaper Master Series paints, which I used to have a whole bunch of sets of them back in 2002, and I used to paint miniatures back then, but unfortunately, life happened and I had to sell that set in order to, live. So that happened, but they were good paints. I never had a problem with them, but I've learned so much more since then. I've, as a painter, grown. And that's what it is. Painting's a journey, so as long as you're better than the last miniature that you painted, then you're okay. If you're not, then maybe you're rushing things, And always dare to try new concepts. Always push yourself. I always do. And the thing about me is I don't repaint miniatures, so once I have one, it's going to be the way it's going to be. Now, that means in the current full years, if I'm improving, I will hate the miniature that I painted days from now. The current miniatures that I'm painting. In the future, I should be able to look at them and say, gosh, they're terrible, which is a good thing. That's definitely a good thing. It's a marker for me saying that I'm improving. So yeah, painting this fur, it's just like painting all miniatures, practice and patience. And you kind of want to, if you don't have to really wait for one layer to dry completely before putting on the next layer. I do some wet blending here with the fur, and that's fine because one can meld into the other. It's not really hard to find lines. Now, if you do want layered, hard defined lines, then the process is going to take you longer. I believe the matte medium which they used for this takes a longer time to dry than just regular acrylic paint. So as you can see, when it came to the fur, in some areas you come down a little too far, and that's okay. I came down far to cover the entire gray areas and try to leave just the white ones, with a little gradient from white to gray there. And you can always come up with a mid-tone gray and bring those lines back up. So it's to make sure that the belly is white and it goes into a gray, and then it goes into the fur, and they have that transition there. Time for the crown of the head. I wanted to paint a small line that goes to the crown of the head and then via the nose as well. This is really a fun project to do. It got me out of wargaming minis for a little while, and got into Reaper. Now, speaking of Reaper, I do have to say that there is a Reaper Bones Kickstarter that's out, and I think it's amazing value. The buy-in is super cheap, and you get like a ton of miniatures for it. Now, if you have a excuse me, if you have a um, stack of shame of miniatures unbuilt, then I guess I don't recommend you getting the Reaper Bones. But if you have quite a stack of unbuilt models, then you probably already backed it. Because if you're like me, it's the new hotness. You gotta have the new hotness, right? Oh, excuse me, 1 second. Excuse me, my goodness. Okay, so um, yeah, it's coming out in stages. It's coming out well now with the for the corking base, the cork base. I actually airbrushed layers of these shades onto the cork and um, modeling paste that I put on there. So this way I have a variance of colors and it has a transition. I like the reds with the blues. So I think I did Nightshade, Dorichi, no, not Violet. Yeah, the Dorichi Violet I think I put in there as well. Agriculture Shade and the Sepia. Um, and I left it, and I have the gray areas, which I also did in the gray primer, which matches the actual wolf itself. So it kind of brings them all together using the different colors. I diffused it with the blue there and a little bit of the violet in the shadows, as well as some non-oil in the deepest recesses as well. So it goes from the, I guess, the browns, the warm reds, contrasting blues back to back so it can pop, and then into the deepest shadow going into the violets and the non-royal blacks to give it a real feel like a shadow in there. If you want to pop out any holes that you have, you want to do some edge highlightings around one end of the hole to signify a reflection of light as well, if you really want to define that. So as you can see, I really just lightly brushed areas. I didn't slop shade down. A lot of people like slopping uh, shade into a miniature. I'm not a real big fan of that because the simple reason is that it pools in areas you don't want it to. And when it comes to miniature painting, it's all about control. You want to control where you're putting the paint and how much paint you're putting. You just don't want to like just willy-nilly throw it in there. Now, if you're doing a piece that you don't really care too much about, you kind of just doing it for like a board game or any kind of game, and you just want to play and you don't really care about how it looks, then and the regulation says that you have to have some colors on there, then dip away. But that's not the purpose of why I paint. I paint to improve. I paint to use them in really cool campaigns. Hopefully one day. I'm reading up on my 5th edition D&D. I just got the books and I'm reading up on it. I'm DM for years for 3.5 and some Pathfinder systems that I've done back in the past, but right now I'm just looking to start a campaign of 5.0, 5e. But before I do that, I want to have enough miniatures painted as well as some terrain built. So some of the things that I'm going to do is some tile systems. Now, I guess I can do videos on tile systems, but to be honest with you, there are a lot of people that do tile system videos that are more amazing than I. In fact, I kind of use their stuff because I think their stuff is amazing. And Black Magic Craft, Wylock, crafting vids, as well as DM Scotty, which is the originator of crafting for that. Now you can alternatively go to a website called Dwarven Forge and get stuff done for you. I'm also going to shout out to Nilla Bean, who's also a YouTuber who I believe he does magnetized tile system as well, which if you want to get something done, just talk to him. Again, Nilla Bean is the YouTube channel. Pretty amazing stuff. And there are others. If you know somebody who 3D prints or has a 3D printer, you can actually have those stuff 3D printed as well. All you have to do is go to Thingiverse for free and kind of upload some of the designs that they have there, and that's for free. Alternatively, you can go to Shapeways and request one of these people who print out different things for dungeon mastering and stuff like that for your campaign, and that's also a nice place. So, as you can see, the process is quite simple. I went a little deep with the fur, so I kind of brighten up the areas with a white. Now, I did the white off camera, but all it is just patching up areas where I thought I went too far. Do exactly the same process, just bring the brush up instead of bringing it down. But you can see it kind of transforming slowly. And that's the whole key of creating this, is to be able to do it slowly. Alright, so that's pretty much how I do fur. It's in layers. You can use the colors that you want. It goes from darker to lighter. I said a little highlighted before I started the process, and there you have it. Let me show you some final pics. And there it is on the rock. Basing is done. I guess I could have put some wash on that basing, but I kind of wanted the basing to pop a little bit because the rocks are so drab and dreary, and I wanted to have like real showcase. So I think it came out pretty amazing here, all the details. And if you build one or paint some fur and like to talk about it, let me know in the comments below. All right, see ya. Well, that's how I approach painting fur. Now, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time on the Miniatures Paintbrush.